Hi everyone, this is Rosie, and today we're going to be making a mini box pouch. So let's get started. Before we get started, let's take a quick look at the pouch. They're approximately 5 inches high by 2 inches wide by about 1 inch deep. As a finishing touch, I put these zipper pulls on here that my son makes on his button making machine, and he does have a video that I will link to where he demonstrates how to use the button machine. Now if we take a look at the inside of one of the pouches, you'll see that the interior is completely finished. There's no center seam here in the inside of the pouch. And the reason why is because we're going to create an opening here in the zipper to turn the pouch right side out. I like this size a lot because it will easily hold a 2-ounce bottle of hand sanitizer. And the way I box in these corners here gives you a cute little triangle on each end. So now let's take a look at the materials needed to make the pouch. I'm using 100% cotton quilting fabric to make the mini box pouch. My first piece of fabric here is for the interior of the pouch. It's 6 inches wide by 6 inches high, and we will use this piece of fabric as it is without any interfacing. Then for the exterior pouch, I've cut out a piece of fabric that's 7 inches wide by 7 inches high, and this piece will be interfaced with a piece of Decovil Light. Now the Decovil Light is going to give you some nice structure. If you don't want to use Decovil Light, you can use Pellon 987F, which will give you a softer pouch. We will be cutting this to size, which will be 6 inches by 6 inches once we've fused everything together. And the reason why I'm starting out with a larger piece of fabric is because that will help with any shrinkage that might occur during the fusing process. So I'll fuse it and then I'll cut it to size, which will be 6 inches by 6 inches. Then I will use a 9-inch polyester zipper. This is a number 3 zipper. It's good to have a zipper that's a little bit longer than what's actually needed because it makes sewing the project together a little bit easier. For my thread, I will be using the Gutermann Morris 70. This is my favorite thread, and it is a heavier weight thread, so you want to make sure that your sewing machine can accommodate it. I'll be using Wonder Clips, or you could use pins. For the hardware, I'm going to be using a 3/4 inch split key ring and a 1/2 inch swivel clip. Then you'll need a point turner, a rotary cutter with a cutting mat, and then I will be using a friction pen in the video, but it's really only for demonstration purposes. You want to be very careful when you use these pens because while the marks will disappear with heat, they can come back with cold, so you need to be very, very careful where you use these pens. I have my exterior fabric now fused to the Decovil Light, and I'm just going to go ahead and cut it down to size. And again, that will be 6 inches by 6 inches. After you have that exterior piece cut to size, you want to turn it over, and we're going to mark a few lines. The first line will be marked 1 inch from the edge. And then you want to mark a line 2 inches up from the edge. Then we're going to turn it around and do the same thing on this side. So you mark a line 1 inch and 2 inches up from the edge. And then you want to go ahead and do the same exact thing to your lining piece. So on the wrong side of the lining, you'll mark those 2 lines on each side, 1 inch up from the edge and 2 inches up from the edge. After you have all the lines marked on both the exterior and the interior, you're going to take each piece and fold back on these lines. So fold right on the line that you marked and then press that line in place. And the reason why we're doing this is because later on, when we go to pinch in the sides to form those pleats in the pouch, this will ensure that the pleats are exactly the same on both sides. So I'm just going to press in on each line right now. And when I'm finished with this one, then I'll go ahead and do the same exact thing to the lining. I have finished ironing the folds in place on both the exterior and the lining pieces, and the next thing that I want to do is take the strip of fabric that will be connecting the hardware to the pouch, and I want it folded in half along the long side and press a crease into that fold. Then I'll open it up, and now I want to take each one of these long raw edges and fold it right into that center fold and press. You do that on both sides. And once you have those folds pressed into place, you're going to take the entire piece and fold it in half so that the two folded edges are together. And then you'll press all of that into place. To install the zipper onto the exterior panel, you're going to place the right side of the zipper onto the right side of the exterior along this long edge right here. And you want your zipper to be parallel to the fold. So here's the fold, and you can see I have that parallel to the zipper. Now the right side of the zipper is always the side with the zipper pull. So I'm going to take my zipper and put the right side of the zipper to the right side of the exterior panel, and I like to start with the zipper pull a little bit above the top edge here. So we'll go ahead and clip that into place. And after this has been clipped into place, we're going to sew the zipper on 1/4 of an inch away from this edge right here. So we'll go 1/4 of an inch away from the zipper tape, and you'll probably need to put a zipper foot onto your machine to do this. Once this is sewn into place, you can go ahead and take the lining, and you'll place the right side of the lining to the right side of the exterior panel, and you'll line everything up, clip it in place, and sew it on again with that same 1/4 inch seam. If you want to sew the lining and the exterior to the zipper at the same time, you certainly can do that. I like to sew mine on individually. And then you're going to take that strip of fabric that we folded and pressed into place for the hardware, and we want to top stitch 1/8 of an inch away from each long edge. I'm going to start by top stitching that strip of fabric that we're going to be using for our hardware. And I'm sewing on a Juki DDL 8000A, and I am going to use a stitch length of about 2.5. And then once you're done top stitching the one side, you can flip it over and go ahead and top stitch the other side exactly the same way. Now I'm ready to sew that zipper into place, and I'm going to be sewing 1/4 of an inch away from the edge of the tape there, using a stitch length of 2.5, and I do have a zipper foot installed here. And you want to back stitch at both ends. Make sure that the edge of your zipper's tape is staying even with the edge of the fabric. And then backstitch at the end. Now I have my lining clipped to the opposite side of the zipper. You want the right side of the lining to be facing the right side of the exterior. And I'm going to flip it over to this side here, and when I sew, I want to follow this previous line of stitching. Now we want to take this piece and we want to press both of the lining and the exterior away from the zipper. You can press this down with an iron if you want, but the important thing is these edges here really need to be even with each other. So I'm just going to temporarily clip those into place just to hold them together for me. And after you have everything pressed down nicely, We're going to top stitch 1/8 of an inch away from this edge here with a stitch length of about 3.0. I'm top stitching 1/8 of an inch away from this edge with a stitch length of 3.0, and you do want to back stitch at both ends. We need to sew this side of the exterior to the opposite side of the zipper. So bring that edge up to the edge of the zipper tape. You're going to clip everything in place. Make sure that these top edges here are even with each other. So clip everything into place. Once you have it all clipped into place, you're going to sew straight across with a 1/4 of an inch seam exactly the same way that you did before. And you do not want to sew the lining at this point, so leave the lining free for now. And I'm going to go ahead and do that off camera. I have that exterior sewn to the opposite side of the zipper, so I'm going to flip it over, and now I'm going to bring up the lining and clip it to the other side of the zipper here. But we don't want to sew all the way across because we're going to leave an opening to turn the pouch right side out through that zipper opening. So go ahead and clip or pin up your lining. Make sure that all of your edges are even. And you're just going to sew about an inch or so in, or about 1.5 inches in from each edge. You want to leave about a 3-inch opening in the middle of the lining. And we'll go do that together on camera. The lining is clipped to the opposite side of the zipper, but I'm going to sew this from the exterior side because I want to follow along that previous line of stitching. Now I've marked in 1.5 inches from each edge, so that's what these blue marks are right here. I'll start at the edge and I will stitch to the blue mark, then I'll scoot over to this mark right here and stitch off to the other edge. And I want to stitch right on top of that previous stitching. And you do want to back stitch. And when I get to the blue mark, I'll just back stitch a little bit. And I'll scoot down to the other blue mark. And back stitch, and then stitch off to the edge. Now take the pouch and you want to open your zipper all the way. Then once that zipper is open, you want to take this whole piece and turn it so that the wrong side of the exterior is facing the wrong side of the lining. So you'll have the exterior right side out and the lining right side out. And then you want to push the lining and the exterior away from the zipper, just like you did before. I'm just going to put in a little clip to hold that in place. And now you have this opening right here in the lining, and that's where we'll be turning the pouch right side out later. But for now, we want to do some top stitching, but we don't want to top stitch over that opening. So you'll get yourself a couple of pins, and you want to pin where that opening ends on both sides. And when we top stitch, we're only going to top stitch from the edge to where the pin is. And then you'll have a pin on this side. We'll top stitch from the pin here out to the outer edge. I'm starting that top stitching. I will back stitch right here at the beginning, and then I'll come to the pin and back stitch at the pin. Make sure that you don't run over any pins. Then I'll scoot down to where the other pin is and top stitch over that other section. You should have those two little sections top stitched, and your lining should be free here. Now you want to take this and once again turn it, so now you'll have the right sides of the fabric together. and you'll want to take this zipper and close it. Now you're not going to close it all the way. You're just going to go a couple of inches above the end of the fabric there. Here's where you're going to see the advantage of marking all of our lines ahead of time and pressing in those folds. You'll take the folds and bring the folded edges together, just like this. And then we will put a clip in there temporarily. And same thing on this end, bring those two folded edges together. Flip it over and do the same thing on this side. And then you'll do the same thing with the lining. So now my folded edges are clipped together, and I want to now clip the lining to the exterior. So you want to make sure that all of these folded edges are nice and even, and then you can go ahead and put in one clip to hold all of them together. After you have all of those folds clipped into place, you're going to take the fabric that you created for the hardware and you're going to cut it in half. I've already cut mine in half. You'll take each one, fold it in half like this so that the raw edges are together, and put your hardware onto that little pull tab there. Now we want to insert that into the pouch. These pull tabs need to be placed on the right side of the zipper. If you place them on the wrong side of the zipper, your hardware is going to end up on the inside of the pouch, which you don't want. So make sure that you're on the right side of the zipper. This one here is for my swivel clip. I want that to be at the top where the zipper pull will be when the pouch is closed. So just push it down in there. You can make these longer or shorter. It's up to you. It's all personal preference. And I'm just going to temporarily put a clip in there just to hold it a little bit. Then you'll do the same thing with the other piece. Slip on the split key ring and then slip that in on top of this right side of the zipper on this side of the pouch. Now you don't have to use the same exact hardware that I'm using. You can, change it up. If you just want a swivel clip and nothing at the bottom, that's fine. You could do this however you like. So we'll get that down in there. Once it's in there, we're going to sew across the bottom here with a 1/4 of an inch seam, and then we will also sew across the top with a 1/4 of an inch seam. I'm going to start by sewing across the bottom of the pouch with a 1/4 inch seam and a stitch length of 3.0. I will be sewing over my zipper teeth. If you have any worries about sewing over your zipper teeth, then all you need to do is crank the machine over. So you'll just turn your hand wheel towards you and hand crank those stitches over the zipper teeth. You never want to stitch over metal zipper teeth. Now I am going to back stitch. And then I will back stitch when I get to this end here. And then we're just going to scoot over, and we're going to do the same exact thing on the top end of the pouch where the zipper pull will be when it's closed. And I'm going to sew this exactly the same way that I sewed the bottom closed. Now that we have those seams closed up, you can go ahead and trim off the ends of the zipper. And I'm going to take out my clips. And I just want to clip off these corners here. Be careful that you don't cut through your stitches. And now you're going to reach in here and find where you have that opening in your lining. So mine's right here. And now I'm going to turn this right side out. You can pull on these tabs here to help bring out those seams. And then I like to go ahead and take my point turner and really work out these corners here. So make this look nice, and then we'll go ahead and close up the opening in the lining with some top stitching. You want to fold under the raw edge of the lining 1/4 of an inch, and then you're going to bring that folded edge right up to the line of stitching where we sewed the zipper in. And then we'll put a couple of clips in to hold that in place. Then we'll go ahead and finish up that top stitching. We'll drop our needle right in where this stitch ended, and then we will sew across. I have the pouch underneath the presser foot, and I'm just going to drop that needle in right where the previous stitching ended. And now I'm going to sew across. I'll just backstitch a couple of stitches. And then when I get to this point right here, I'll stop and backstitch. Here is the completed mini box pouch with the opening in the lining sewn closed. I even put on this really cute little zipper pull that my son makes on his button making machine. Well, I do hope that you've enjoyed this video, and I would love it if you give the pouch a try. And if you're not already a subscriber, I would love to have you as one, so please like and subscribe.